Shelagh Fogarty on LBC.
Now, Labour are going to force a parliamentary vote to protect leaseholders, they say, across the country from what they've described as intolerable cladding costs that millions are facing in unsafe and unsellable flats, with bills mounting. I mean, we spoke to Rachel Venables, LBC's correspondent, about this a short while ago. There'll be an Opposition Day debate in Parliament on Monday. Here to talk about this with me a bit more is Thangam Debbonaire, Shadow Secretary of State for Housing and Labour MP for Bristol West. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
You clearly don't think that the government is moving quickly enough on this. What do you want from them?
Well, I want them to, first of all, they need to speed up, because there are people who 3 years on from the awful Grenfell tragedy in which so many people lost their lives, there are still people living in homes where there is dangerous cladding on their flats, and they've had to live through that in the lockdown. They are also, many of them, facing the appalling situation where they're being charged on top of their mortgage. They're being charged hundreds of pounds each month on what's called Waking Watch. Their insurance is going through the roof, and those that want to try and sell their homes to move on are unable to do so. This is an absolutely intolerable situation, and we want the government to act to urgently establish the extent of how many buildings are left, to provide upfront funding, and then to go after those who've actually caused the problem. So protect the leaseholder and the taxpayer from the cost of this, because the government said 16 times from the dispatch box that it shouldn't be leaseholders who are left paying the cost. They bought their flats in good faith, and they should be able to live there safely.
If a developer has built a building with this cladding unknowingly, if you see what I mean, in terms of the danger, unknowingly, is that mitigation from their perspective?
Well, I mean, that's why we've asked the government to take the risk off the leaseholders, because there will be some developers who've done exactly the right thing and built things unknowingly and followed the law and the regulations. And there are others that we know, because of the Grenfell inquiry, who have been less than responsible. But what we want to happen is for the government to take the responsibility off leaseholders, so that they can take on finding out who is to blame, who is responsible, and going after them if that's what's needed. There's also other models around the world of different ways of financing the recovery, but one thing is for sure, it shouldn't be left to leaseholders.
Well, thank you. I'm sure we'll talk again next week when that debate takes place. Thangam Debbonaire, Shadow Secretary of State for Housing, Labour MP for Bristol West.